So let's talk about what's the future HBCUs.
Like I said, it's a sanctuary for Black thought, not only in the PhD, absolutely happens, absolutely lit, love it, do the research, great Black people, but also in the fledgling Black thought that is not that developed, that is not about to change the world, but just about to change his own family. But he don't know that yet, because he just graduated from Sterling in the hood and Ross S. Sterling High School. My parents went there,
Right.
but just regular guy and doesn't. I think I want to use my brain. I think I'm smart. I think I'm doing all right in school, but only a school like an HBCU, at least in my experience, gives one the opportunity and the care and knowledge of your situation, of your culture, of your background, to make that ridiculous transition. And I think it is ridiculous from a Black inner city, quote unquote, K through 12 experience that I honestly think ill equips you and give you the full breadth of a BS in engineering.
I think our mandate's still the same, and I think this is still an important mandate. And I think that the success stories that I think are most important, because like Prairie produces some of the most Black female engineers in the country, right?
Engineers, nurses, architects, we'd be doing numbers.
Yeah. And when we talk about our school, because we know our school's numbers, but FAMU does the same thing. The same thing. Yeah.
I'm sure Langston's okay.
Yeah. But I do think the most important success stories are those who, like my dad, was the first one to go to college. And so, there's just trying to make a dollar 15 cents. And a teacher pulls you aside and says, the greatest get up to go to school, college. You think about that? Warmth that happens, at a school like that for someone who's aimless, a willingness to
well, I say that's the mandate, that's the purpose. It's like, okay, the special designation is for addressing the community that has been all but defeated, kicked while we were down, and it's like, okay, I don't know that you don't have those skills. You don't know that. I can't guarantee that you don't have that knowledge, but I'm prepared if you don't, because I see you got the talent, you got the skill, the potential, and you haven't been given what the guy who goes to Harvard, who's already prepared. You haven't been given none of those opportunities. I got that. Let me just, generous giving of all these opportunities, knowledge, enter into these different spaces, and then then it can actually happen to facilitate that transformation.
All right, welcome back to Relatively Conscious. My name is Antonious Brown.
Ervin Bryant.
Shout out to DJ for making our beat.
At DW Made That on social media.
Follow us on social media.
That's at Kinda Woke on Instagram and Twitter. Relatively Conscious everywhere else. Like, follow, share, subscribe, retweet, comment, and let us know how you feel about HBCUs. If it's anything but I love them, unsubscribe, unfollow, unretweet, uncomment.
Okay, let's do a little bit of history. Why are HBCUs important in the post-civil rights era? Those 1970s on.
That's funny because it's like they're, I don't want to say least important, but like their significance, that's when it comes into question. Because before that, this is the only schools we can go to, like, colleges apart from segregation. And it's not like there aren't unsegregated white schools, but especially like in the South and Texas and stuff like that. HBCU is where it's at. And even if they did allow Black people in, are you gonna get in? And then when you get there, how are you gonna be treated was the question. But then after that, it's like it's more of a tradition. It's this is where my people went, and this is where they understand me, and this is where there's all this history. And I mean, there's a level of a question of how you will be treated, but Black people go to predominantly white institutions all the time and do great. So it's not necessarily like the one place for us to go to school. That's absurd, untrue, not at all the case like it used to be. Not the case after the 70s. But it's just lit. It's just a cool place. It's a sanctuary for the Black thought, I would say.
Yeah, like a personal story. My father went to Prairie View, and they had a magnet program pipeline from this high school for the engineering program, Booker T. Washington High School in Houston, to Prairie View A&M University. The debate team was one of the first, the TSU debate team was one of the first Black debate teams. The first Black debate team would be Wiley College, but they're one of the ones still doing it big during that time, right? Most of the D9 gets their start at HBCUs and then really flourish during that time, basically at HBCUs. And we have
he said the D9, that is the
Sorry.
Divine Nine fraternities and sororities, the ones you see doing all the cool dances, wearing the jackets, stomp the yard, except they use fictitious ones, and there are real ones in real life.
Yeah.
They really do be swinging around canes.
They're really important during that time on HBCU campuses, and a lot of the social revolution that happens in the 70s, a lot of the Afrocentric Garveyism that goes on in the 90s comes from HBCU campuses. Even though Bill Cosby has his own sins, one good thing about the Cosby Show is that they continue to promote and uplift HBCUs. There being the fictitious campus of Hillman, but it's just it's Spelman and Morehouse basically.
But it combined them and made a fake name. Yeah,
or Howard. Some people say it's Howard. As we talk about the history of HBCUs after the Civil Rights era, there's still a history of underfunding, right? So if we're just talking some other universities besides our own, Alcorn, to this day, are still owed millions of dollars.
I believe Tennessee State.
Tennessee State. Few, though. North Carolina A&T was another one that was underfunded for a long time. And then Prairie View, of course, was underfunded for a long time. And then what was it, 1983 we just talked about?
1984, it became official that we were added as an institution of the first class, university of the first class in the Texas State Constitution, to put us in the chronological space where we should have been with UT and Texas A&M when they were founded. We were founded at the same time. We were chartered, established at the same time. And so it's like, okay, we should be with the big dogs. And have we caught up with that money? Absolutely not. But, it takes a long time to make up for 100 years of arrested development, as they say. So this is sparkling water, by the way.
Let's talk about the underfunding, how the underfunding shaped the post-civil rights era, basically. So you have a lot of universities, like Texas A&M doesn't become co-ed until the 60s, basically.
Yes.
So a lot of universities start taking off post-World War II once you have the GIs come home and start utilizing the GI Bill. So as other universities take off, HBCUs who have GIs going to their schools are being underfunded and can't take off in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, because it's Black people, so regardless of whether or not you served, Black veterans are done. I mean, still in some ways are done dirty, but right. It's Black veterans, especially in the 20th century, never got the full honor and respect that they, earned in battle or whatever. So, definitely not a university. But then after the 70s, the university changes role in society where, that military prestige was a big deal, which would blew you up before the 70s, before the 80s. But as our economy changed to rely more heavily on those college educated and far less on tradesmen and craftsmen, then the value of the college degree skyrocketed, the demand for the college degree skyrocketed, and of course, when we're all competing for the degree, Black, white, or whoever, everybody's going for the top tier. Who right now in 1976, in 1984, in 1995, who as a university has got the biggest campus, baddest football team, baddest women? It's a sad consideration, but it's true. I was not, the concern was not about the books. Right. And so, and the programs though, right. And the alumni network. And so all those things, when you start them off, except for the women, the PWI's got them off top, just off of, the history. And of course, Prairie View and TSU, and Texas Southern University as well. They all have Southern University and Xavier. All these universities just go on and on. Have all of these resources, but Arrested Development for 100 years, more or less. So they don't have it in the same degree. And though the money is coming in, tuition's skyrocketing as we see it today, it's ridiculous. And the government's bankrolling a lot of it. And research is doing way more research is happening, crazy government contracts. We just never have the capacity to get all of that money that white schools have the capacity to receive.
Yeah, so Prairie View is somewhat unique because our buildings are somewhat new, but a lot of the HBCUs you go to, they have a lot of some older buildings because you didn't have the time, the money, or the capacity to rebuild. Some end up closing down because they end up being absorbed by their white counterparts at the colleges, basically.
Or if they're private, they just shut down.
They don't have the money to continue to operate, right?
Yeah.
Or they become extremely small in scale. So they used to be powerhouses, and they really become small in scale to continue to survive in this new world. And the history of underfunding kind of feeds into the impossible mandate, because a lot of these schools, land grant schools, as they come under these bigger umbrella university systems, they are the school that's given the mandate of taking students from underprivileged neighborhoods and turning them into college graduates with less funding, less resources, but the same amount of time, basically, they have to do it.
But that's super weird, because the impossible mandate, the special designation, which is one of the terms that's been used to describe Prairie View, but there's a bunch of different bureaucratic terminology used to describe a university that particularly serves those communities that are disenfranchised in one way or another: Black students, Hispanic students, first generation college, first generation immigrants, et cetera, et cetera. You're doing a favor not a favor, but you're serving the community of America in one way or another particularly well. Whereas maybe Harvard has got X amount of legacy students who already grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth. So it's not the same situation. They don't benefit from the college experience as much as one whose entire family knows nothing of this school system and the world that they're about to enter into. What's crazy is that's always been the case, though, for HBCUs. So
right
at their foundation, Black people are. I mean, some of the schools predate emancipation. So Black people are literally the lowest in society, and educating these folks primarily at first in the Bible and seminary, but then normal schools teaching people how to teach other people, teaching people how to read, teaching people how to do engineering, teaching agriculture, and then you get more and more scholarly pursuits. And now we find ourselves still daunted by this task that the university has done to varying levels of success, depending on what university you're talking about and which population you're serving. We're still struggling to elevate these people to a certain level of scholarly rigor. That's wild. That it should be impossible if you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, like when Booker T. Washington starts Tuskegee, the idea is that I'm going to teach these children of slaves. I think Booker T. Washington is a child of a slave, right?
Yeah, up from slavery. That's his name.
Yeah.
He's and he was born into slavery.
Right.
So,
sorry.
Himself. I mean, he's a child of an enslaved person, but he himself was owned for a period of time.
So you're taking former slaves or children of slaves, and you're moving them into society as a whole. And so his mandate was, I'm going to make you craftsmen, carpenters, engineers. We're going to build our own university, basically, right? At Tuskegee. And it is a pretty successfully, basically, right? They pretty much created a class of middle class in a compared to other Black people, and sometimes compared to white people too. Black craftsmen, basically, who are forced to only serve one population at this time. They may be the best carpenter in town, but they're not serving the white people at this time. And I don't know if he was alive today, I think he would be very much confused in how his university still has somewhat the same mandate. So if you're not taking people up from slavery, you're taking them up from, as you call it, the hood, the neighborhood, and you're pulling them into a university from pre-K to 12 schools that failed them, basically. So instead of their parents not being able to read, teach them how to read because they're former slaves and weren't allowed to read, the school system, America's school system has failed them, and they probably still can't read because it's still an issue at hand. And now my university has to, again, take these people and then turn them into productive members of society with still less funding, than the white schools at the same time.
Yeah, I think that, and part of me wants to be like, dang, what's wrong with us? But that's I can rest that one pretty squarely on America, though. I mean, that's so far as we laid it out. You got these crazy schools who are incredibly unique as a class of university in America, who started from incredibly humble beginnings, working at what would seem to be an impossible mandate, and all the while, not only just being Black, all the things that are difficult about that, but then like literally getting less money to do it and expecting to do it successfully. Now, I will say, that successfully thing, I'm going to put some quotes on it. The stats will make you sad. But I mean, yeah, it's not good. But the amount of student debt people graduate with, the on-time graduation rate, the dropout rate, they're sad. And so we can say we've been successfully doing this for XYZ because HBCUs produce some excellent people, some leaders, in the local community sense and in the Martin Luther King Jr. sense, right? So like there's leaders here and there and leaders of industry, et cetera, et cetera. They produce people, as I would say at Prairie View, we produce productive people,
The vice president is an HBCU grad,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not cap, but at the same time, it's just like the mandate is impossible. The mandate is impossible on its own to bring people up from the lowest point in society. Franz Fanon said the wretched of the earth, right? So those are the people you're supposed to be educating, but also with like minimal resources or to be set back into your development 100 years. I mean, the stats just prove it. It's like, oh, this is like really not possible. And it's kind of wild because it's like, well, why continue doing this? It's like, yeah, you were established out of this racist motivation back in the day. We don't need that anymore. You're not quote unquote successful anymore. By that metric at least. And it's rough, and we be complaining because it's rough. Why continue doing this?
So let's talk about what's the future of HBCUs, because this is a conversation that's had at times. I know people who are HBCU grads like myself can kind of get defensive. Is that the word we can look for when we talk about what the future HBCUs are? Because one argument, well, we are successful because what we have to do is so hard. Another argument is that we should be comparing ourselves to other white schools. But even to talk about us in the same breath with Texas A&M isn't fair to us. Why would we even do that, right?
That's real.
To call Howard the Black Harvard, don't do that. It's not fair, basically, right? But other questions, some people ask the question who are more wanting to have some hard discussions is, what is our goal in today's world? Why are we still here? Are we aimless in what we want? Because we do want. I see people want HBCUs to be a place where we can go and feel at home, feel welcome and liked. We talk about student athletes coming to HBCUs to build the programs, basically. But one of the problems is that, like, if I'm a student athlete who's a 5-star athlete, I'm just going to go to LSU because I have a better chance to get into the NFL. So the question is,
some students have not been making that choice though, as of late.
Yeah. So the question is, well, what is it that we want, right? Do we want to have students come to our schools? We want to build our programs. Do we want to shoot and aim to be Stanford became the Ivy of the West? Should that be our goal? Or should I go to be something totally different?
I think I don't know about Ivy anything,
Right.
That's I mean, yeah, the whole Ivy thing is super weird and elitist, and I mean, it's not literally a league you can join, right? Like you just can't, if it is what it is, it was what it was, and what it was is an athletic conference. So like, kind of chill out on that, right?
Right.
MIT and Rice and Stanford are still like some of the best universities in the world. So, and they're not Ivies. So, you
Right.
got to chill on that. But, um, when you recognize all the prestige and all the racism that comes with all that elite status, it's like it's not really worth it. What's the goal of education, right? What are our students? What does our community need? I think is what the real question is, and why HBCUs still persist and people still vouch for them, and people like you and I rush to their defense in an argument. I haven't met these arguments against like someone who's like, "Yo, bring peer review down," but in instances where people want to bring up the numbers and want to say, "Well, I don't know," you got to shut all that down because, like I said, it's a sanctuary for Black thought, not only in the PhD dissertation that's being written that has this particular perspective and is focusing on this particular community and serves the community in XYZ ways. Absolutely happens. Absolutely lit. Love it. Do the research. Great. Black people. But also in the fledgling Black thought that is not that developed, that is not about to change the world, but just about to change his own family. But he don't know that yet because he just graduated from Sterling in the hood and Ross S. Sterling High School. My parents went there,
Right.
but just regular guy and doesn't. I think I want to use my brain. I think I'm smart. I think I'm doing all right in school, but only a school like an HBCU, at least in my experience, gives one the opportunity and the care and knowledge of your situation, of your culture, of your background to make that ridiculous transition. And I think it is ridiculous from a Black inner city, quote unquote, K through 12 experience that I honestly think ill equips you and give you the full breadth of a BS in engineering, a BA in history or English. That's ridiculous, and I think people make that leap, but far more common is that, especially for first generation students. We already said that at an HBCU.
Yeah, I think our mandate's still the same, and I think it's still an important mandate. And I think that the success stories that I think are most important, because like Prairie produces some of the most Black female engineers in the country, right?
Engineers, nurses, architects, we'd be doing numbers.
Yeah. And when we talk about our school, because we know our school's numbers, but FAMU does the same thing.
The
same thing. Yeah.
I'm sure Langston's okay.
Yeah.
Fisk, they do all right.
Yeah, Grambling, let's go from Grambling in our comments and let us know. But I do think the most important success stories of those who, like my dad, was the first one to go to college. And so, there's drug use and people just trying to make $1.15, and a teacher pulls you aside and says, your grades are good enough to go to school, college. You think about that? Your grades are good enough to I have a college to take you to send you to.
I'll tell you like this, real quick, fast, and in a hurry. I've always gone to a Black church because that's who I am.
Right.
And it was in a Black church where a Prairie View professor was like, "Oh, you could be good on the Prairie View debate team," and then boom, long way down the line, a few years, 3 years later, championship, state level, national level.
Right.
I competed for the championship and got runner up, you know what I'm saying? But it doesn't matter, bro. I was there. I was at the championship round, and that's all that really counts, at least in my book.
I will argue to this day that we got jibs. I will never.
It is what it is. It is what it is. But off of it, because I was not about to go over there. I was not about to go to Prairie View. I was about to be another dime a dozen, a student ID number on the roll at like Sam Houston State or whatever. And Prairie View switched up the flow in a bunch of different ways. But that's just the short anecdote of how my skills were rocketed to a different level.
And I do think like there's a there's a not what's the word for enclave, but like a warmth that happens, at a school like that for someone who's aimless, a willingness to
well, so that's the mandate, that's the purpose. It's like, okay, this is not like Harvard. You gotta, you come in there, I'm about to be an astronaut. That's me. I'm going in, I'm doing spacewalks, and you halfway there already.
Right.
And all you got to do is really sit through the courses and, do the labs and improve it. But we're already on your way. Right. And of course, people do that at HBCUs, and it's lit and it's great. And they have their own unique perspective that they bring from that. But the mandate, the special designation, is for, addressing the community that has been all but defeated, kicked while we were down, and it's like, okay, I don't know that you don't have those skills. You don't know that, I can't guarantee that you don't have that knowledge, but I'm prepared if you don't, because I see you got the talent, you got the skill, the potential, and you haven't been given what the guy who goes to Harvard, who's already prepared, you haven't been given none of those opportunities. I got that. Let me just, generous giving of all these opportunities, knowledge, enter into these different spaces, and then then it can actually happen. They facilitate that transformation.
Yeah. One last thing. Our president of our university, Dr.
Yes.
It was like where also she was talking about this when they had that panel inside the room. She said she was former president of Brown University.
Yes.
She said, at Brown,
the first Black president of an Ivy.
Right. They really, they nurture their students and help them along the way. But she said, no school can nurture you the way HBCU can nurture you.
She graduated from Dillard. And
right.
This is in a time when that was it.
Yeah.
The Black school, that's where you were going to go. It wasn't a question. She obviously has the potential, the mental fortitude, the capacity, the skills to run, not only graduate from, but run the Ivies.
She said she was a Bachelor's teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So
PhDs in multiple languages, including French. I mean, English is the other, but French, and recognized on every level. I mean, a stellar scholar. Like, the list is long. Look up the bio. You know what I'm saying? Business, scholarship, philanthropy, community service, all of that. But they did not want her stepping into school.
Yeah.
And Dillard was the place to say, "Oh, come on, we love you."
Yeah, and Dillard was the one who saw the potential in her, and was one to take her to the. As she was saying, was that she said no one's gonna give you the helping hand that's gonna help you with your homework. That's gonna teach a man how to tie a tie when his father was absent, and then take the time to teach him that. They're gonna expect you to come to school at Brown University and already have your tie, basically. But something like a prairie view professor or a professor at HBCUs will take you aside and take you through the steps, and I think that's very important. I think that's why in this Black Future Month, as they say, I think it's important to sit down, talk about what it is that makes our school so unique and so important for the future of us as a people.
Without the HBCU, now I know Kanye did not attend an HBCU, but you've heard the dropout and you've heard late registration, okay? Without us, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The cultural backbone of two classics. It wouldn't happen.
Yeah, the Broke Five Broke.
Come on.
Yeah. All right, my name's Antonious Brown.
Ervin Bryant.
Peace.